What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the third episode of the Play the Vinyl podcast. A lot of stuff has been happening this week in music. We've had a lot of good releases. Unfortunately, they just came out last night, most of them. I'm recording this on Friday the 18th, so I've only gotten really around to listen to one album that came out yesterday, so it kind of beat the rest of the artists to the bullet. We've had a world famous, usual Kanye fiasco that I'm going to get into. That's not so much of the just pure insanity that he's ranted on in the past, that he actually has some kind of backing on it, and he's actually getting support from other artists. Um, but to really highlight, what I like to do is get into what I've been listening to, what's been on rotation. Um, this week I did a review for Detroit 2, and that's just a compact, long, draining album. So I did have to listen to a lot of that. I didn't have much time for um, some other albums I would have liked to listen to. I barely even got to listen to like my regular rotation. Really, I didn't really get to listen to any Peggy or Earl. Obviously I listened to some songs, but I didn't really get through any album playthroughs. I you know didn't get to really what I usually do. Um, but to really start off, Detroit 2, I've been listening. I listened to. Unfortunately, I was just burnt out of that. I was just burnt out from that album. You know, it. I liked Sean's delivery, but to me it was just it was like Sean was trying to be creative, and Big Sean went into the album, kind of wanted to show us that he's an artist, um, which is he's a little late to the bullet. Yeah, I said that already. He's already late to he's already late to you know he's already late to the game with that. I mean, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, he would have been in talks to be, one of the big three, big four rappers, um, with Drake, J. Cole, Kendrick. New school, new generation, or at the time they were considered the new generation, with Cole, and Drake, Kendrick, Cole, and then Big Sean. Um, you know, Drake is Drake. Drake turned into a pop star. So if you're really gonna just be considering rappers, then it was really just J. Cole, Kendrick, and Big Sean. Um, J. Cole and Kendrick both showed us their artistic capabilities. Big Sean not so much. Big Sean always sounded like Big Sean. Um, but I think on this album he had a goal, to show us that he's an artist. He showed a little bit more vulnerability, but to me it just wasn't enough. There were a lot of filler tracks. Not really filler tracks. There were a lot of tracks that had less meaning than the theme of the album did. There were a lot of tracks that were just meant for the radio. There were some cheesy, um, typical Big Sean tracks thrown in there. Although it's really not a question that Big Sean can rap. Musically, sometimes he just doesn't meet the bar. Um, which for some people is cool. For me, it was a little underwhelming. Um, but there were some tracks on there that I think are um are some of Big Sean's best, such as "Lucky Me." I really like that track. I enjoy that track a lot. Sean's he was he was cunning. He had some witty lyrics. He was just on his game. And there were other tracks on that album just as well that he was doing his thing on. He was rapping great. But just artistically, he didn't really push the limits to be considered, one of a Kendrick and a Cole, nowadays. Um, Obviously, my other review that I did, I listened. I don't even know how the fuck to pronounce it. I'm not even gonna try. Um, Vergengenheitsbauwinskun. This is really the second Slouse and Malone installment to his Creator Speak projects. That was fantastic. That's probably my favorite album that's come out this year. I mean, Run the Jewels 4 was pretty fucking good too. Um, Punisher was good. Shit, I don't know. You know, it for a 20-minute long album, it really delivered the message. And I said this in my review, but it was like as I was listening to it, I was thinking to myself like, whoa, you know, there's a lot being said in the nothingness. You know, like even the nothing is something. That's what I was literally thinking to myself. I was like the silence, the ambience. That's really not anything. It's not so much. It's not a melody. Um, the little components that weren't meant to be really overbearing or hard hitting. They meant a lot more than some of even the melodies did, and the amount of like the silence that Slash Malone can place at certain points in the composition. He just really he knocks it out of the park. And silence is a thing that's really important in music. I mean, when you're learning to play any instrument, mostly if you're learning to play an instrument classically, you learn the importance of the rest. You learn the importance of white noise, or the silence. Really not really white noise. White noise is more so what Slazen was excelling in. But as I'm thinking to myself that I look it up, because I have to. And it's one of I'm reviewing the album, so I look up maybe I look up on Genius. I look up what was what's this album about, and I see that it's an extension from Smile, well, not Smile One, A Quiet Farewell, and from there I look at A Quiet Farewell, and then they have a excerpt from Slausen Malone. I know that's not his real name, but I'm just gonna call him that. Saying the point is to show that even nothing can be something. And that shit just blew my mind, because I'm like, yo, not many fucking artists can get their theme across like so perfectly. I mean, like Earl did on some rap songs, Doom could on a lot of his fucking songs. Like, you got it, you got the message, you got the purpose. And I should point out, like, I mean abstractly, like Earl, you could totally tell what the fuck he meant on some rap songs, like, bars like shit, why didn't nobody tell me I was bleeding, say goodbye to my openness, total eclipse. Peggy on Veteran, you could totally tell that album was about the internet, or even though it's not about the internet, there's a theme surrounding it that's it's made from the internet, and it's made from the current fucking Reddit type culture that's going on, and the deep web and shit like that. And that fucking blew my mind. If you haven't listened to that album, you really have to go listen to it. And I actually thought it delivered that notion a little better than A Quiet Farewell did. Granted, A Quiet Farewell had 10 good more minutes on it. But this album, the acousticness of it really capitalized on that whole silence and that whole quietness that's kind of lingers throughout the whole album. It was fucking beautiful, man. Like, you really gotta listen to it. Like I said in my article, it's enough to make a grown man fucking cry. And Slausen's rapping on it, which we haven't heard we've heard him rap like a verse, or a couple verses here and there, but on this album his vocals and his rapping are consistent, and it's him. It's not a feature, like, it's all him. And it just complements his craft so well, instead of having someone else rap on his beat. And Frank, he had great rappers. He's had great rappers on his beat. I mean, obviously he's had Earl, he's had Medane, he's had Mike. He's had fantastic rappers over his production. But when you're an artist, working kind of solely from the production, and on the lyrical side, that's what makes a Peggy, a Earl, a Mike. If you haven't been able to tell yet, I really do like Mike's music. I just, some of it is kind of redundant and similar. But I do it. I like War in My Pen. I love that album. obviously made God Bless Your Household is like an underground classic at this point. But yeah, when an artist closely works with the music, and when you make the beat in mind that you have this type of rapping in mind, and that you have this type of motion in mind that you want to convey. So when you hop on that beat that you just made, that's you made to seem sad, or you made to even take it deeper. You made to convey the theme of being stuck in a place, um, which is what the album is mostly about. It's about not knowing what the fuck to do with yourself when you're feeling extremely depressed. Um, so the way he would write, and the way when once he hops on his own beat, he can convey and complement the theme perfectly, because he had in mind what the fuck he was gonna do, and he did his thing. Um, yeah, listen, if you haven't gone and listened to that album, and you're a real underground kind of abstract rap fan or hip hop fan, you gotta go do it. Artistically, it's fucking beautiful. It's almost impeccable. I mean, again, 20-minute album. That I don't want to compare it to an hour-long album, but we have been seeing a trend recently of these albums getting shorter in time, and with the cancellation of these filler tracks, it only improves it. It only improves the listening experience. I'd rather listen to a 20-minute album with no fillers and all 10 out of 10 songs than listen to a fucking Detroit that has a few really, really, really good songs in it, but then I'm listening to 40 minutes of fucking bullshit. Yeah, so really, I mean, and this morning I went on my run. I listened to Conway's new album. What the fuck is it called? Shit, I just had it. From King to a God. And here's my thing with Griselda, right? Griselda, they deserve all the respect that they get for creating the song that they made. But after a while, the subject matter is something that I just can't relate to, me personally. And that kind of draws me away from it. And I think their delivery can be cool. I mean, West Side Gun, like, his delivery is obviously unique, but just being unique doesn't mean that it's, I could keep on listening to it. I mean, when DaBaby first came out, everyone was like, yo, his flow is fun, no one else is doing it. And then, like, 3 months later, everyone's like, all right, yo, time to change. And I think all the members of Griselda have great lyrical capabilities. However, it's just kind of there hasn't been that artistic push. There hasn't been like that revelation for one of them to make like this fucking, at least since like the old albums that they were making at the time when it was like, yo, like this shit is new, like they're killing it. At this point it's like it's time for a change, and I was hoping for that with Conway's album, which I did. From the Alfredo album, right, with Gibbs and The Alchemist on production, the Conway's verse on that was probably one of the best feature verses I've heard in this year at least, or especially, or more so on one of those type of tracks. So I was really excited for this album, and I was excited to see what Conway was gonna do next, because it was like something that Griselda never does, is like really get vulnerable on a track, and that feature verse was like Conway being just heart to heart. He was open. He was talking about his, how he's kind of hurting the relationship between him and his kids, and it really was beautiful. So I was really excited for what he was gonna have in store. However, when I was listening to it, I kind of realized it didn't live up to what I was expecting. I think it's living up to what other people were expecting. There were some new tracks that I haven't heard from a Griselda member. The Alchemist wasn't on lead production, on an executive producer on this, which was very interesting to hear. And not that I love the Alchemist's production, but it was just interesting to hear because all of the recent albums that have come out from Griselda have been, if you're gonna, especially if you're gonna include kind of Gibbs as almost part of that group at this point. Um, so you count Alfredo. Really, it was just, I really wanted to hear what it would sound like if it was, someone like Hit Boy, for example, produced these tracks, and he did. It was just really interesting. I he broke down that barrier of what it is to be a Griselda member in some songs, but eventually, I mean, I haven't finished listening to it because I was just on a run. I got through about a half hour of it, so I have like 15 minutes left, I think. But it was, at times I was like, oh, this isn't, this is what I know of him, and then at times it was really standout. Again, I didn't do a deep listen. I'm not gonna get too into it. I'm not gonna review it here. Just first impressions. It's definitely more interesting than what I've heard in the past from Griselda, but it wasn't exactly what I was expecting from Conway after the feature verse that he left for us on Alfredo. All right, so next in these last 10 minutes or so, let's talk about what Kanye's been doing, right? So Kanye in the Kanye manner posted a picture of him taking a piss on his Grammy. Now, on first impression, you look at it and you're like, oh, there goes Kanye. He's fucking lost it, and he's he lost his mind a long time ago, folks. But from there, Kanye was saying, him, Drake, Kendrick, and J. Cole, which are essentially like the four biggest rappers, need to come together and really tell Sony and Universal Music, fuck off. He then went into saying that the NBA is, a type of slave organization as well. He's essentially saying that these big corporations are taking black talent for, to their advantage. Listen, the NBA pays really fucking well. I mean, I understand when you're, when it's a league full of black talent being under like a white corporate type thing, or upper management that's going to be predominantly white. You have a white commissioner. I understand how you could see that, but dude, they're getting paid $300 million contracts. Like that's where I would have drawn the line on that. However, the music industry is fucking tough, guys. I mean, they take advantage of the little knowledge that the artists who are fresh coming into the game have, because there's this excitement that you're gonna get signed. In case you didn't realize, that's why we got the Little Pumps. That's why we got the Smoke Perps. That's why we got the Blue Faces. It wasn't because they were good. It was because the music industry saw them as an advantage to capitalize and pretty much take all the cash that's going to be coming in from them. If you notice, there are very few artists who hold a sustainable career for the time that, a Kendrick, a Cole, a Drake does. Not that I'm saying that any of those guys, I mean, I do, obviously Kendrick is the GOAT, like, come at me. But not that I'm saying that any of those guys is better than, a Peggy or an Earl or an underground rapper, but those guys just kept their career at a certain level for so long, and that's because you can't let the corporations have a string on you. You have to have a string on the corporations. An artist who no one likes is Russ, but what he did that was genius was, like, he kept rejecting record deals, and so did Chance. We know this too. When you reject a record deal and then you continue to grow your following, what you're essentially doing is valuing yourself more. And what Russ did, he valued himself, and he kept building his own value until he could tell the label this is what he wants. He doesn't want a 360 deal. He doesn't want them taking 75% of his fucking money, whatever it is, and he struck it rich, and he struck it more rich than most artists do in an off the bat contract. So I'm assuming that happened to Kanye. I'm assuming that might have happened to, I honestly don't think it even happened to Drake or Cole or Kendrick, but I'm assuming that Kanye is upset And Kanye compassionately is upset that that's happening to his fellow rappers and African American rappers especially. So he wants a change, and essentially what he wants is almost like some kind of riot, not riot, upbringing, some kind of strike against the music labels to get their masters back. Because as an artist, you really don't, you want to own all the aspects of your own music. But unfortunately, the music industry doesn't work like that. You make a song, it's not yours. If you don't own your masters, it's Sony's song or it's Universal song, and it's not your song. So obviously, as an artist who's trapped in these long-term contracts, are gonna get upset about it, and I think rightfully so. Kanye just does things in such a fucking Kanye fashion. Making bold statements on Twitter, going off first. First essentially going at Kendrick Cole and Drake's throats, and then asking them to get together with him. It's just, he doesn't handle situations right, but he has a point, which he hasn't had in so fucking long. The dude is out of his mind, but he has a point, and Kanye's a smart dude. Kanye's not, he's not dumb. He knows what the fuck he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing when he says stupid things. He knows exactly what he's doing when he went on stage, like at the VMAs. He knows what he's doing. He knew what he was doing posting that picture. Half of it's publicity, but if he has an end goal, he knows how to reach his end goal. Look at where he is. He's a billionaire, or whatever, multi-millionaire. He owns a successful business. He married into a rich family. Just, the fucking Kardashians. There was no one more fit for a Kanye to fucking marry into. Everything the man does has a plan. Yeah, so this wasn't just an outburst. This has a point to it. There's a reason that Kanye is doing this. It's out of frustration for him and his fellow artists. He wants change, and I'm hoping that they get changed, because too many artists get taken advantage of. I mean, when's the last time you've heard of, not that they fucking deserve it because they're trash, but when's the last time you've heard a Lil Pump, Smoke Perp, Blueface, hit? The labels don't have long-term plans for these artists. The long-term plan is that they're going to have a year to get a couple of hits. They're going to drain that cash, and then whatever cash that the artist is going to make, even if it's measly fucking cash because they're not getting shows, they're not getting hits, the label will then, continue to draw cash from them as an asset, which is unfair. If the artist isn't making any money, they should be able to back out of the contract or something, but it unfortunately doesn't work like that, which is why so many artists focus on touring, because if you don't sign a 360 deal, you're allowed to, you collect most of the cash that comes from your shows and your tours. As Earl Sweatshirt said, I make more money on my motherfucking feet. You make more money when you're touring, when you're doing the shows, when you're interacting with fans, because the streams and the hits, if you even if you don't have a 360, the industry still takes most of that money that comes in. You have to be pretty dumb nowadays to sign a fucking 360 because it's been exposed. 360 just mean, they literally take money out of everything that you do. You are an asset to them. You are making them money no matter what you're doing. Most artists don't sign that though. And if they do, it's just because of ignorance. It's because they don't know. It's because they jumped into things. It's because these labels hop on and try to catch them at the beginning of their careers before they're educated on anything. Yeah. So there's a method to his madness this time around. Next week, what I'm gonna do, I want to make a post, and see what you guys have been listening to from these recent drops. I saw rumors that Saba was gonna drop, so that's that's long awaited. Not too long, but it's long enough awaited. It's time to hear some new stuff from him. Plenty of other artists have dropped last night, so next week, next episode, I want to hear what you guys are thinking, what you guys are listening to, and what are some of your thoughts, and we'll talk about it. All right. All right, guys. I'm out of here. Follow me on Instagram at Play the Vinyl with periods in between them. Fuck the guy who took the regular Play the Vinyl. Check out my obviously the blog. And that's it, guys. Peace.